Did she know it was your first time? I was in my 20s, and after a few experiences where I had performance anxiety, I told her, and she was cool with it. This helped me relax and finally get it done. Afterward, I couldn't help but think I was stressed over this, and it became much less of a big deal in my head. Story 1. I decided I wanted to have it that week and found someone online who was older and more experienced. She invited me over. I told her the truth. She gave me a drink and a massage. When I felt ready, we were intimate, and she made me feel comfortable. Then we took a warm bath together and repeated this every day for 3 months until I left the country. We are still close friends today and occasionally meet when I visit. Story 2. Never dated in high school. Shy, awkward, a bit overweight, insecure, and probably something inside me told me I just wasn't emotionally ready anyway. High school was a pretty good time. My small, close circle of friends, and I got more out of life than a lot of kids, and the bonds we formed are still strong 30 years later. Sophomore year of college, I had a girlfriend. We were in love and attracted to each other, but she had some anxieties about sex, so we took it very slow. When we finally tried to have sex, it didn't work. She was in a lot of pain before I could even tell I was in. We thought it was her nervousness causing her to contract. After a few tries, we decided it was stressing us out, so we just stopped trying for a while. We made up for it and then some with oral sex. Getting oral sex a couple of times a day isn't the worst fate. I became very skilled at cunnilingus, which served me well in later relationships. We ended up breaking up before we figured out the intercourse issue. We remained friends, and later she told me her doctor diagnosed her with an abnormally small vaginal opening. It wasn't nerves, she was just very small down there, and although I am not undersized, I am very well endowed. It just wasn't a good fit, literally. My next girlfriend was the opposite of the first. She was a sexually adventurous type who lost her virginity young and had had a lot of casual sex but no long-term relationships. She was also a year older than me. I was nervous and insecure when we started dating because she was so experienced. And I was still a virgin. I was taking it very slow, and I guess she enjoyed that because although she was experienced in bed, she was new to romance and having a guy who was interested in her as a whole person, not just trying to have sex. She enjoyed the long makeout sessions followed by chaste cuddling all night. She was 22, but I was the sweet high school boyfriend she never had. Eventually, though, she got curious and maybe a little weirded out that I wasn't trying to get physical with her. She asked me why, worried a little that I didn't find her attractive enough, which was adorable because she was beyond sexy. She knew I was with my first girlfriend for over a year, so it didn't occur to her that I might still be a virgin. I explained and admitted I was intimidated by her sexual history. She was bisexual, which didn't help my feelings of being hopelessly sexually outmatched, and I was sure I would seem really lame and useless at sex to her. I remember this was at a party at her place. We were having this conversation quietly in a corner while her roommates and friends danced and partied. I laid it all out, and she just smiled, took my hand and said, "Oh, man, you're still a virgin? That's all? Well, we have to take care of that right now." She led me upstairs. We fooled around for a while, and as she unrolled a condom for me, she said, "This is your first time. You only get one. Don't worry about rocking my world, you're not going to, and that's fine. You just relax and let this time be about you. We have plenty of time for you to learn." As for me, I've never been a guy's first, so that's a first for me, and I'm just going to be savoring that. Or words to that effect. It was really sweet. She said just what I needed to hear, and she meant it. She took the pressure right off. I lasted longer than we expected, but I was still super lame and awkward. We had a laugh about that. She asked me how I felt, and I said, "Yeah, that was pretty awesome." She said, "Good. Now rest up because tomorrow your training begins." Muhahaha. Yeah, she broke my heart later on, but I can't be mad at her. She was a great girl in many respects. It just wasn't meant to be in the long run. Story 3, she knew. Tinder date. It was awful. She didn't help at all. I got it in but never climaxed. She said I was bad, and we stopped after a while. She was absolutely awkward about me being a virgin. Second time with a different girl. She helped me and I orgasmed 3 times. She taught me how to perform oral sex between orgasms. I think of her fondly. Never saw her again. Story 4. My first time with a woman was with my wife on our honeymoon. I was 23, and it was the second night. The biggest surprise for me was that it took me a long time to finish, which I did not expect based on conversations with friends. Story 5. She was 22 and did not know. We met in a bar, drank, and then went somewhere where we had sex in my car. 0 out of 10, not worth it. The next time was more planned and went better. Story 6. I think I was 22. She was very kind and patient with me. Even though we were both attracted to each other after our first date, we waited about a month with many conversations and reassurances before we had sex for the first time. I was probably lucky for her to be my first. Story 7. Not sure if she knew or not. One of the worst experiences of my life. It took me a long time to process and move past it. Story 8. I was 18 or 19, and the scene from Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, where Anakin kills the Sand People, was playing in the background. It made me question some of my life choices. Story 9. I was around 24 years old when I was broken up with because of a particular personal circumstance. After that, I asked around a lot and found that it was very common for women to reject men for the same reason. So I gained some experience. I did tell the woman. She knew beforehand, and it ended up being an okay experience. We took it slow and had fun both ways. Then we parted ways. Story 10. It was about a week before my 21st birthday. She knew and was interested. I had a huge guilty virgin complex during my teenage years that paradoxically made it harder for me to find the kind of relationship I needed to lose it. I mention this to say that, yes, it was an ego booster for a week or two, but then I realized everything else was still the same. Story 11. After a show, I played at her house after she invited us. She said she was worried that I had been drinking and had to drive home, so I should stay the night. My friend was still there blocking, but once he got the hint, I remember he told her something like, "Be nice to him. He is a really good person." That made me feel loved, and he left. I tried to fall asleep, opened my eyes, and she was staring at me, so I kissed her. Things went pretty well after that. Story 12. On my wedding day, she was also a virgin. It did not go well. She had a urinary tract infection and was not aware of it, which explained why honeymoon sex was extremely painful for her. We did not know and assumed it was because of lack of stretching. Story 13. I was in the military and had just turned 21 when a woman got hold of my barracks room phone number after seeing me standing by the door. I ended up having sex with her about 45 minutes later. Story 14. Shy and socially inept 19-year-old guy. She was an absolute predator even though she was younger than me by a year. She knew it was my first time and enjoyed taking the virginities of guys like me. You know the type. If they had a clue, they'd be a catch. But as we all know, confidence is the sexiest thing a guy can have. Without it, you can be as handsome as the day is long and still struggle sexually and romantically. She would find us, mold us, dress us, teach us how to act and talk, parading us around like she had landed something many other women would drool over. But all the while, the toxicity was second to none. Gaslighting was so bad, I wasn't even sure what my own name was unless she told me. Hyperbole. My self-esteem was firmly in the toilet. It didn't matter, I had sex, right? It wasn't until I made my way through Marine Corps boot camp and was in the fleet, having achieved something without her in solid support, that I started recognizing her behavior as abuse and her odd takes as outright lies and manipulation. Sexy, right? Story 15. December 25th. I decided I was done being a virgin, so I installed Tinder and this time tried for real with success. I got a date with a beautiful woman who wanted to book a hotel room, so I did. I remember thinking I was being catfished because I couldn't imagine such a beautiful woman wanting me. But there she was in the hotel lobby. We talked a bit with a glass of wine but quickly went upstairs. That's when I found out having sexual relationships with people I have no bond with does not work at all for me. I couldn't climax, and after a minute or 10, I couldn't even stay aroused, even though she was a 9 out of 10. I was too nervous, felt disgusting, and constantly thought to myself, "Dude, what are you doing? You don't even know this girl." I remember feeling exceptionally lonely. So I lied and told her I was having a migraine attack and quickly left. A week later, she messaged me asking if I wanted to try again. Although that was a dream scenario for the me before this experience, I politely declined, uninstalled Tinder, and never did casual hookups again. I never had any hookups since. I have been looking for love but haven't found it. It's kind of hilarious now, looking back 6 years later, especially since it's still my only time. I'm not too sorry for it because I learned something real about myself that night. I hope I do find love someday and experience a better side of sex. But if not, at least I can laugh at myself. Story 16. I was 20, my wife was 19, and it was our wedding night. Both of us were virgins. It was her idea to wait until our wedding night. I wish we had done it sooner. Sex is too wonderful not to have whenever you want it. I remember the night well. She came out of the bathroom in black lingerie looking amazing. It was so freeing to finally be married and remove the excuse that being sexual was somehow wrong. I dislike how religion can make you feel guilty about your most basic instincts. Story 17. Oral sex at 16, but no intercourse until 19 or 20 due to religious beliefs I no longer hold. I would have definitely been intimate with my 16-year-old girlfriend if I had not believed what I did. I suppose I regret not being more intimate with the few girls I was involved with before. On the other hand, I may have avoided problems or pregnancy issues. Story 18. I was 20. It was with my girlfriend of 7 months. She knew I was a virgin. She never said anything specifically, but I'm now 99% sure she wasn't a virgin. The first time was awkward, and I had trouble climaxing. After that, it got better with practice. We broke up 2 years later due to irreconcilable differences and toxic behaviors. Her mother calls once or twice a year to see how I've been and updates me on the family. I'm the future son-in-law who got away. Sounds weird, but her mother is a total sweetheart, so it's cool. As for her, we haven't talked in a decade, and it's better that way. The past should remain in the past. I hope she's doing well. Story 19. I was hanging out with a friend of a friend and we hit it off. We talked for a couple of weeks. Then she invited me over for the weekend. We ended up drinking and hooking up. After a second date, she decided she wasn't interested anymore. It didn't really live up to the hype, honestly. Felt nice but wasn't anything crazy. What was life-changing was feeling desirable and like someone actually wanted me. I would highly recommend the experience. Story 20. I was very late and not by choice. I was very busy with school and then my training as a resident working 100-hour weeks, so I didn't have the time or energy. I was also shy around women until my mid-20s. I was 27, and it was during halftime of a Dallas Cowboys versus Green Bay Packers playoff game. It was not the most romantic first time, and I felt bad afterward because I didn't make it special for her. Nonetheless, we are now married, and our intimate life has improved a lot. Story 21. I was 18. I did not finish. She was upset. We talked and cuddled. We made love again the next morning. Took 5 minutes. Story 22. I was 18, not over 18 but close. I felt like I was the last among my friends and all the guys around me to lose my virginity. I also struggled with a serious pornography addiction and had a strong desire to experience real sex. I was talking to a girl I really liked and had feelings for, but it went sour and she kind of broke my heart. In a strange way, trying to occupy my time and in a whatever moment, I contacted an escort. I ended up sleeping with her. She didn't know it was my first time, unless she guessed from my age and limited experience. Sex was fine, but clarity after ejaculation hit hard. I wasted a significant amount of money and lost my virginity to a woman I never saw again. Story 23. She asked for a back rub. She did not expect to get turned on from it, and when I pressed against her, that was that. Story 24. I was 18, which seems to count for the purposes of this thread. In high school, I was hopeless with girls, never even kissed anyone. I did manage to get a friend to go with me to our senior prom, but dancing with her was about as intimate a thing I'd done with a woman prior to college. Going to college, I was determined to turn things around. I decided I would force myself to be less awkward, talk to all the new people I was going to meet at school, and take up some activities that involved doing something physical outside in the sun. The summer after high school, I also started running so that I had some sort of exercise routine. I doubt it did much for my looks that quickly, but it made me a lot more confident. At the start of freshman year, I was meeting everyone else on my floor at the dorm, and there was a girl I thought was kind of cute. We had very similar musical tastes, so I used that as a conversation opener, and somehow we hit it off. She was similarly inexperienced, so we ended up being each other's first everything. It took a little while before we actually had sex, but every little bit of physical intimacy that we shared was amazing to me. Eventually, there was a weekend when her roommate was out of town, so that was the time we first had sex. It was a wonderful experience for me, and I certainly think and hope it was good for her as well. We'd fooled around a fair amount leading up to that point, so it was not like we were totally clueless. Because we'd gone slow, there was also a lot of trust, so by the standards of 18-year-olds, we were good about feedback and voicing likes and desires. So yes, great experience, absolutely zero regrets about how it happened or who it happened with. Sorry for the long post, but being 18 and in love for the first time is magical, and it still brings a smile to my face to think back on it all. One thing to add, I'm relatively old by the standards of Reddit, so I was fortunate to have grown up in a less porn-saturated world. I certainly saw pornography as a teenager, but dial-up internet meant I was not viewing a bunch of movies or anything like that. I think that helped me avoid having some super screwed-up views of what sex is like. Story 25. I was 24. It went all right, nothing too special in my memory. She was a Tinder date. We had gotten together and watched a movie the week before Valentine's Day. Then on Valentine's Day, we decided to pretend to be a couple, and that led to me having sex for the first time. Story 26. I was 18, and we were both inexperienced. We had been dating for about 9 months, and it went as well as it could, lasting about a minute. 15 minutes later, we tried again, and it went much better. Story 27. I was 23, and it went as expected. The first time is always strange because you think you will be prepared, but it's not the same when you are doing it for real. The girl was younger than me by a few years. She was 18 but more experienced. I managed to almost look like I knew what I was doing, but thankfully, even though I was nervous, I lasted quite a long time. She enjoyed it a lot but noticed from the lack of proper rhythm that something was different. She was surprised to learn I was a virgin afterward because I was a good-looking guy. We laughed and continued to date for the following year. And indeed, we were very active. I gained a lot of experience from that relationship. Story 28. I was in a relationship with my first serious girlfriend. I lost my virginity to her sometime after I turned 21. I had dated others before or fooled around with girls, but I did not consider those relationships serious. She knew I was a virgin. I had planned to wait until marriage, but things physically progressed until we had sex. We had been together a few months before it happened. I was not nervous. She did not pressure me in any way. I am glad I was with someone I really loved, who loved me too. In hindsight, there was no way that relationship was going to work out. I would not have known that at the time. Story 29. It was this year, and it took quite some time to get to the point where we were both mentally and physically ready. It did not go perfectly because of reasons only she and I know. It was not the picture-perfect scene like you see in movies. It was more of a let's try and see how far we can go before we have enough type of experience. Funnily enough, our second and third times were much more fun and enjoyable than the first. Story 30. She did not know it was my first time, and it definitely was not her first time. She thought I had plenty of experience, and I did not tell her she was my first until we were 3 months in and had sex dozens of times. Nothing special led up to it. We were dating, and it was a normal escalation of a fun day together. Do not feel bad about performance anxiety. I had the same problem with a girl I had a crush on for 10 years and missed my chance. I had performance anxiety with my next girlfriend after that, who helped me relax and get started. I have not had that issue resurface for over 10 years now. Story 31. I had plenty of girlfriends before, but I was very overweight and out of shape until age 18 when I lost 130 pounds in 1 year and got into great shape. Then I finally had the confidence. So far, I have been with 8 people and now I am 20. Story 32. I was 20. It was perfect. It was awkward just like anybody else's first time, but it was mutual and with someone I had liked for 4 years already at the time and who had previously rejected me due to circumstances. I don't regret never rushing into any of the opportunities one had as a teenager. Story 33. I am 22 years old. My girlfriend is 24. Our relationship began a few months ago. To my surprise, she was just as inexperienced as I was. She has to take certain medications that interfere with birth control pills, so the first hurdle was to find adequate contraception, which worked out in the end. Story 34. She did not know and never asked. We never talked about it. It was good. The second time, half an hour later, was good. Many times over that weekend were great. It is still great many years later. Story 35. I guess not technically 18 but 17 and within weeks of 18. We met online. She was exactly my type. I drove 8 hours to meet her after months of talking. We had sex within about 5 minutes of meeting, feral-type chemistry. We came simultaneously. It is still, to this day, probably my best sexual experience. Unfortunately, she was using me as an escape from her difficult long-distance marriage. Story 36. 22. Wedding night. We both knew what was happening. We were tired from the busy wedding day, but still shared intimate moments 3 to 4 times over the course of the night. Oh, to be young again. Story 37. I didn't have a girlfriend until college because I was too nervous and awkward to ask anyone out. It went okay. I had some anxiety about performing because it was my first time, but it wasn't hers, which she knew. Honestly, I was so worried about being disappointed that I bought some desensitizing condoms from the store that were supposed to make it last longer. Bad move. They made it go down, and it was really awkward the first couple of times until I realized what the problem was. Luckily, she wasn't turned off by that for some reason. We are married now. Story 38. My first experience with a woman was at age 22. She brought me home on a night out. I did not have penetrative sex until age 26 and had to rely on oral sex during those years, losing several potential partners because of undiagnosed erectile dysfunction that doctors refused to believe. The first time using medication was good. I had sex with an experienced woman who told me how she wanted it. We were both falling in love, and she wanted me to ejaculate in her and bought emergency contraception pills beforehand. It was a long night of pent-up sexual frustrations and relief. She knew beforehand. Story 39. I was 24. It went okay, no big deal. My girlfriend led up to it. She knew it was my first time. Like I said, no big deal. Story 40. A couple of weeks after my 19th birthday, I started dating a girl. She wanted to be intimate on the first date, but we took it slow. She knew it was my first time. Story 41. In 2020, we were in my car parked on a dark street in a random subdivision. She quickly began to perform oral sex on me. I was embarrassed since it was my first time. Story 42. I was on a show about being an adult virgin. After it aired, someone saw the show, we met up, and became intimate. I was about 24 when it aired. I realized I had overhyped it in my head but loved oral. Story 43. I was 29, and she followed me out of the bar and asked if she could come home with me for a while. Everything went great. Story 44. She was my first love, though I did not see it turning into a relationship of love. I was 19. At the Christmas party, she looked at me, I looked at her, and then we kissed, which was a first for me. She gave me all of my firsts. I miss her so much. We were strong for 5 years. Story 45. It was both our first times. We had been dating for about a year, and we have now been married for almost 20 years. It worked out okay. Story 46. I was 20 years old. I am gay, and the other person was gay too. Both of us were virgins. We had been dating for a few weeks and decided to be intimate one night. It was sweet and awkward. Story 47. I was exactly 18 years old. I have no idea if she knew it was my first time, but I had no idea what I was doing regarding her pleasure. It was a one-night stand where she came to my dorm with obviously only one thing on her mind. I did my part and we were done. I honestly hope she got something out of it, but I would be surprised if she did. Story 48. I think around 27. It was awesome, we both came. We checked websites for the best escorts nearby. No, she did not know. We went multiple rounds and it was good. Story 49. I was 19. There was a girl who occasionally hung out with our group, and at a party, she insisted that I take her to my house. I agreed. We started, but midway through, I asked her if it was her first time. She said no, so I stopped and went for a smoke. She didn't understand why and thought it was about her appearance, but I explained that I wanted my first time to be with someone who was also a virgin. She seemed surprised but understood. Technically, I lost my virginity that day, despite it only lasting about 5 minutes before I stopped. It was a terrible experience, but I'm happy with the decision I made because a year later, I met a perfect virgin girl. I fully lost my virginity to her. We started dating, and our sex life has been everything I could dream of to this day. We've been together for 5 years. Story 50. I was 19. It went quickly because I was too aroused and came after about 30 seconds. Felt good, but sex gets better with knowledge and practice. The first times will always be somewhat awkward until you learn what you are doing. Story 51. We had been doing lots of other things until then, but to be perfectly honest, her sincere desire to have sex with me was so outside the realm of my experience that it felt suspicious. Anyway, once I was comfortable, one night we just did. I was very nervous, wanting to make sure nothing hurt and that she felt good. It was great, mostly because I had mentally prepared myself. I think I did not have to fumble with the condom, etc. After that, it was like a switch flipped in my brain. My self-perception had been totally altered. Everything became much easier, and I was much more at ease with myself. Story 52. At 20, with my wife, she knew it was my first time. It went great. I have been having sex with her for 20 years, and it gets better each year. Story 53. I was 30. It's not like I didn't have opportunities before, but my anxiety was so bad that I couldn't make a move even though she gave every possible sign, including sleeping together. Even kissing was ridiculously hard for me, and I was a late bloomer because of that. I eventually got on medication and got my life together. One day at a siblings party, I ended up hitting it off with one of her friends. I had no intention of hooking up at that party, but she found me irresistible. The party was at a rental property, so we went off to one of the bedrooms and were together for hours. During that time, she asked if I had been with others, and I lied by omission about not being a virgin because I had focused more on other things recently. Before meeting her, I was so nervous about not knowing what to do that I consumed a bunch of tips and tricks to help make her orgasm, which paid off since she had multiple that night. However, I couldn't climax those first few nights together. She enjoyed our first time so much that she immediately tried to turn it into a friends with benefits situation. That was a lot of fun, and I eventually admitted to her that I was a virgin until I met her that night. She was shocked due to my performance but said she wished I had told her then since she would have been more caring about me climaxing too. I told her I had a great time regardless, and we eventually figured out how to make me climax. She asked why I didn't tell her. In my past, many girls were interested in me and wanted to fool around, but the moment they learned I was a virgin, many backed down. Almost all said they wanted it to be more special for me. Many wished their first time meant something more and didn't want me to lose that experience. She said she understood but would have been okay with it. Regardless, she could not tell, and she mentioned she was bisexual and said I was better than some of the women she had been with. That was a major ego boost for me. We ended up catching feelings for each other and dated for a good while. So the story of how I lost my virginity became more special than initially intended. Now I don't have any mental blocks and I'm having more fun than ever. Story 54. I was in fact over 18. It was both of our first times and we both knew it. The girl and I had fooled around a lot already, off and on for a couple of months. We were both college freshmen, and we decided to go for it one night when her roommate was out of town. From other commenters here, I know my experience was fairly uncommon, but there were no performance issues and it went great. It took her a few minutes to get used to the feeling of having something inside her, but after a short while she relaxed. She said it only hurt a little at first, then she got into it. It lasted about 15 minutes. We stayed as friends with benefits for the rest of the academic year. It was fun, and then it was over. We both moved on. She was a very sweet person, and I still have fond memories. But all things considered, I wish I had waited until marriage. My wife is by far the best sex I have ever had. Nothing compares, and I would rather not have had anything to compare her to. Love and commitment are the only way to truly get to know someone. Everything else is just sex without emotional connection. Story 55. I was 19. I let her think I was experienced, but she knew I wasn't. It was fine. We were both under the influence of methamphetamine and were intimate for about 10 hours. Story 56. At 29, I was referred to a prostitute. For 10 years starting from age 18, I was told no one would even look in my direction. At least 8 different people who did not know each other suggested seeing a prostitute. Over the years, I experienced almost zero interest from women. I did not want to become isolated, so I made that decision. To this day, nothing has changed, and prostitutes remain the only option for intimacy. Story 57. She was easy and always flirting with me. I don't think she realized it was my first time. It was a one-time experience, which was good because it was just okay. Story 58. I was 21 years old and had a couple of attempts, but performance anxiety prevented me from achieving an erection. I finally succeeded with a girlfriend at the time. Unfortunately, it only happened once with her. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.